I don't think there is because of the configuration. So, well, so Halloween, there's a big giant thing of candy in the faculty office. Grabbed an armful. I think there's 17 packets. I think that's enough for everybody. I hope so. I'll grab mine last. It's just nerds. Yeah. Yep. Samir, got you. Mia, no. Once you're here, Bridget. There. Elizabeth, not here. Emma, there, perfect. Treasure, no. Yusuf, no. Enzel, you're here. Julia, you're here. Okay, not. Daniel. Eli, no. Ilani, yes. Savannah, yes. Claudia, yes. Okay, so really everybody. All right, awesome. Okay. There's been the one available. Where's it? There we go. Cool. Right. Let's go. There's Prince. We can record. Perfect. Well, it's definitely been a lifespan journey day for me today. Took mom to the ER. They did a CT scan for um, internal bleeding. There's nothing of that going on at all. In fact, they released her and they were like, we think you ate something weird. But I got to navigate that throughout my day job and wait for test results. There's a power outage at the hospital, so they had to wait longer. Then I had to go out of the way to go pick her up. I was like, you tell them that I'm a professor and that they can't make you wait an hour to release you when they say they're releasing you. And they did, thankfully, so I could make it on time for you guys today. But yeah, she was literally like, I hope I don't die today. I'm like, I hope you don't die today either. I don't think that's going to happen. I think you're going to be okay. But when I got the text about checking for internal bleeding, that was a little scary. There's none. It was literally just either bad food or low level COVID. I like to blame a lot of things on COVID because I like to pick on COVID because of hiding from the invisible monster for a couple years. I don't know. They said it was literally all the tests is just you ate something bad. She's like, you might get sick. I'm like, no, I think I'll be fine. And have some self-fulfilling prophecy and be positive. So sure. Oh, hang on. That the Paulos one over in like Orland Park. Because I live in Tinley, so I had to go to Orland Park, then back to Tinley, then drive up, which is totally okay. But I was not sure what was going on with like mom's health for like several hours today. So oh, they were bad, like heart palpitation, like chest pains, like throwing up, like really bad. Just we think he had something bad. There's nothing wrong with her heart. Yeah, so I had to talk about like, I guess I have to take over your dog. Like she'll have a good home. Like, so mostly taxing today, but she's fine. So that's what's important, right? That not work. Change this real quick. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so talk about intelligence. What is the nature, intelligence tests, theories, the neuroscience of intelligence, some of the key controversies and differences in IQ scores, the influence of hereditary in the environment, group comparisons and issues, the development of intelligence across the lifespan, tests of infant intelligence, how we measure that, stability and change, intelligence in adulthood, intellectual disability, giftedness, creativity, and the characteristics of intellectual disability, giftedness, and creativity. So there's been a lot of controversy, debates about what intelligence is, whether tests are misused, walk through the controversies, as well as the extent to which we have a single intelligence across the lifespan, and extremes of intelligence and creativity. And we think about intelligence. I may have asked you this in Gen Psych for some of my repeat students, but how do you define intelligence before we dive in? What's your, I guess, opinion or idea of your definition of intelligence? Denzel, what do you got?
You feel that, or your ability to pick up equal to the skill, like with ease. Like say,
Specific skill, gotcha.
yeah, like reading, like you pick that up really quick, study reading, or like learning how to dance, like you have kinesthetic intelligence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's why it makes sense when you say like intelligence and other type. Or memory could be intelligence.
Anybody else? I might define intelligence. Because I am geographically retarded, okay? I need GPS. I'm not I'm stumped when it comes to geography. That's a better way to say it. But I don't think I'm not intelligent, but I really like my GPS. I might get lost on the way here without it. I've driven to this school for years, but I need the GPS. I have dead reckoning been accurate, but I think I'm geographically like intelligence handicapped. That's probably a better way to say it. Like I don't like things that involve maps. I like to just plug it into my phone and just let the phone tell me where to go or the built-in GPS. And you're like vibing with what I'm saying. But it doesn't mean we lack in Mons and I lack intelligence. It just means and we think about intelligence, like everybody in this room probably has some sort of intelligence superpower where you're like, you know what, guys? Back away. I got this thing, fill in the blank, and it's something you're really good at. And you have some good examples, Denzel, like things that you're really good at. But it doesn't mean if you're bad at something, you're not intelligent. And there's all these different ways that we measure it. Any other thoughts on how you might define intelligence?
Rationalize and use cause and effect.
Rational. So now you're talking about, yeah, rationalized cause and effect. Things like critical thinking, right? Cause and effect, rationalization. Anyone ever hear of this? Heuristic. It's a mental shortcut. We do this every day. We look for patterns.
Problem solving.
Problem solving, yeah. Problem solving. Well, that's usually the one that I like the most. Can you adapt? Can you adapt? Be adaptable. Can you adapt to your situation? We can certainly think about personality over this a little bit. Think about intelligence. Intelligence, by the way, is about 80% inherited. 72% on personality. But when you say adaptability, like situationally, let's say you're introverted or extroverted and you're in a situation where you have to be the reverse of one of those two. Can you do that when it's fundamentally necessary to be successful in that life situation, even if it's not who you fundamentally are? Because I think that's definitely adaptability, right?
Would you say you're against memorization?
Say more. Like you mean like because there's different ways we measure intelligence. That might be like book smarts, or we might call like specific intelligence. Is that where you're going, or did you mean something else, Daniel?
Yes. Like you can, recite a bunch of words, but you can't necessarily know what they mean. You can't figure it out.
So yeah, I think that might not be as much intelligence as actually the cognitive processing power of understanding what you're talking about. Like memorization, we can probably all do that. Usually 10 to 12 times you can get it memorized. What do you got to add?
And discipline, do you want, like, being disciplined in like the aspect of your life that you're trying to learn more or like learn
Not-
more of it?
I'm not sure. I think we need more context for discipline. So I feel like you can definitely increase your intelligence through discipline because if you go to school just in general or learn something new, you can increase your intelligence. What happens at the molecular level is your brain fundamentally changes, and it's like molecular welding is the way you can conceptualize it in terms of the neuroconnectors that happen. So I feel like your case that you're making is like the discipline could make you more intelligent. It's almost like a criteria to give you more intelligence. I could take that, sure. Discipline. Anybody else on intelligence before we dive in? I do have a free thing we can take that will tell you what your intelligence is, by the way. Now, it's not an IQ test. It's more of a here's what you're good at test, and it gives you scores. Do you want to take that now? Okay, because I see some enthusiasm. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, give me a I gotta put it. I know where it is, but I gotta drop it into the announcement. So give me a second. I have so many things housed on the internet or saved either on this computer or somewhere. So give me just a second. So I can grab the link. Okay, we're gonna grab this and put this over here. So the idea would be take a few minutes, take it, and then we'd all share our scores. And you would talk about like this makes sense, it doesn't make sense, it was an accurate assessment, it wasn't. I agree, I disagree. Here are my rationales. And there's a couple things we want to make sure you're not doing when you take this so that you probably have accurate results. One thing is social desirability. Does anyone know what social desirability is? Yes? No? Have an idea, Savannah? I can read your eyes. No? Not sure. Answering the test in a fashion of what you think the test wants to hear. Social desirability. This will be the most accurate assessment if you're honest about the questions it's asking you. Like I was taking a test once at a gas station to work as a gas station attendant a few years ago. And one of the questions was, have you ever thought about cursing at work?
Yeah.
I left the room and I went outside and talked to the leadership and I said, fuck yeah. No, just kidding. But who hasn't? Who hasn't thought about cursing at work? I mean, realistically, the correct answer is yes, you want to be honest on the test. I did say yes, I got the job. So as you're going through the test, be honest with yourself as you answer the questions. But so that if you go into announcements right here, how are you smart? If you click on this, it'll load that. If you click on the assessment or you cut and paste it, it'll give you an interactive form like that. And then you click on the interactive form like this. And then one statement does not describe you at all. Two, statement describes you very little. Three, statement describes you somewhat. Four, statement describes you pretty well. Five, the statement describes you accurately. Take a few minutes, walk through that, you'll get scores, and then we'll do a round robin to open up our ideas on intelligence and see what insights we have. And if you agree or disagree with it, tell us why. Did it measure it was it an accurate assessment? Why not? And or how does it apply to you? Does it make sense? It probably will. It's usually a pretty good assessment, but you can use critical thinking to agree or disagree with it. It'll probably take 5 or 10 minutes or so to do it, maybe 15. Take your time, please answer them honestly. There are 56 questions, so we'll take at least a few minutes to walk through it. Is that I can zoom in so you guys can actually see it. Either way, I don't.
I was watching, I thought you was watching.
So what we're doing is there is a link in the announcements. I can walk through it with you. Is we're talking about intelligence this week. So if you go into Blackboard into the announcements, it says how are you smart, and then it's more of like the types of intelligence we all have. It's not like a traditional IQ test. Cut and paste it into a new tab like that, and then you get an interactive form. Click on that, and then answer the questions. We're going to start with a round robin of like where you score and why, because everybody in this room has some sort of superpower, which is your intelligence. Where you're like, hey, back away, this is my thing. And then we'll segue into lecture and stuff. So. I'll mark you here right now. We're doing that, Yusuf. Oh, and I have candy. from the faculty office, if you want some. Yeah. What are we doing? Should we go in like 5 minutes or so, or 10? What's kind of the pace? Or are you all done? So everybody, I mean, we can talk now. I just didn't want anyone to feel rushed to go through it. If you're still working, please speak up. You're done. Okay. Okay. I just want to sure you had anybody still working at all on it? Okay. So let's talk about what you find out about yourself. Do you agree, disagree? How does it apply academically, professionally, personally? Do you have like examples, etc.? Whoever would like to start us off, let's definitely hear from everybody. I took it too, so be happy to speak as well. So, Claudia, what do you got?
Top one was spatial, which makes sense. I've always been a very visual person. And even recently I actually did some testing, at the doctors, and I also got the same results where like visual, I was like, that was my biggest strength. Which again, makes a lot of sense, because for me, even with like the way I learn things, I color code a lot, or like everything's a very visual thing for me.
Okay, so that makes sense.
And I've always loved drawing and whatnot, so it just makes sense.
Okay. Does it influence like your major or anything?
So actually, I am a bio major, but I am thinking about going into genetics because does kind of use the visual aspect, like maybe I can do something with that. And I've always found it really interesting.
Okay. Because ideally, as we think about this, find ways we can thrive with our different intelligences. Okay. Cool. Who's next? Was that a hand or was that just a stretch? Oh, okay. Well, all right, Helen.
So, so I'm a person, I like to reflect a lot. So even if I like go against you, I always like go back to my sister. I'm like, okay, how did I just speak to my sister? Like when we're arguing and she's being mean and I'm being mean, I like to see the things that I was like saying to her and stuff like that. Another thing is it says I like to write a lot too as well. So I journal a lot too whenever I'm like thinking and overthinking the whole thing. And then months pass by and I go back to it and I'm like, oh, I was stressing for nothing.
Really good. Okay. So definitely, it sounds like it definitely applies. And anything on major or anything, does it drive any other decisions in your life? Okay. All right. Yusuf, what do you got?
I visual. It says like I remember things visually a lot. And it's telling me to like color code different words when I'm like taking notes and stuff. I actually disagree a little bit. I can remember things when I see them visually, like in terms of my surroundings, like in terms of like GPS or if I'm like driving around.
Okay.
Then I'll remember visually where I am. But in terms of information, like when I'm learning, I actually do a lot better audibly. Like I'll listen and I'll recall things by listening rather than like color coding doesn't make any difference to me, it just confuses me. And
Okay.
when I'm hearing things, that's why I remember information. But I do pretty well like outside without a map. I could probably navigate pretty well.
Oh, I wish I had that world. I know how to read a map and all that, but I have to like expend extra cognitive energy on it to be successful with it because I just don't really like it.
Yeah.
So, cool. Done. Anything with that would do in terms of like driving major or any life decisions based on what you found?
I'm not really sure, but like, are you saying like would I change my major or like would I change my?
Yeah, or is it already like determined what your major is because of those things?
My major wasn't actually determined at all. I'm between psychology and physical therapy. I've been like that for a little while.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't really. I'm still between them.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Who's ready to tell us next? Sure. Savannah, what'd you find out?
And I definitely would agree that I love nature. I spend a lot of time outside and like a lot of my interests involve being outdoors, but I don't know if I would get first. And then the second one was physical, which makes sense. I'm getting my arts degree right now, so heads up, but I don't know how much of that is like, I think that I'm clear with like directions and like spatial and like figuring things out like where they are in space, but I wouldn't say that. I don't know how much of it is like a learning skill versus like.
Oh, nature versus nurture. Yeah. Usually it's a combination of the two. That's the biggest challenge. I think the research usually says it's like 51% nature, 49% nurture. But then we want to challenge ourselves and think about like when can it be more or one or the other? Is like it with that specificity of particular things. So
It's the exact same thing. I like being around people, I like talking to people, mostly I don't know. That's why I like my friends, love talking to people, being around them.
if you have if you have enough friends to fill up one hand or less, you are incredibly blessed. I mean, like good quality friends, not just like 50,000 friends on Facebook that you don't know, like real IRL people. So, yeah. Oh, that makes sense for social. Yeah. Yes. I heard from who else is brave.
That nature is my top one. So I agree with that being in Boy Scouts, and being outside of us.
That makes sense.
We went Waterfall Glen like a few weeks ago, and I haven't been there since like 2 years, and I still like remember it's like, oh, if we go over here, we'll see some cool stuff. Over here, this is. Like the outdoors.
Very cool. And anything that does feel like the major or life decisions at all in terms of what you are looking at for data on this?
Really, I mean, I plan going into the medical field and probably nursing, though. I'd like to find a job that gets me like in the healthcare industry, but gets me outside. Like I thought about EMT for a while, but once I saw how much they got paid, I was like,
Oh, sure. I get, keep
I'm
going.
still looking, but if I could do something like I've always thought about, maybe like doing firefighting and then
Wow.
and nursing.
Well, those are pretty good careers.
Part-time,
Yeah,
so I could kind of get out more.
that would be fun. Yeah, the pay is I mean, that's intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, but like it's got to be decent. Like a career outcome for me, like a long time ago, would have been like to be a ski instructor because I loved double, triple black diamonds and where the threat of death is real. I love the adrenaline rush, but it's usually part time and you make like $15 an hour, like tops. Like I want to be able to eat, so I didn't go that route. So I get what you're putting down there. That could be fun. Then you could change up. You do different part time things. Nice. Who's next? Who have we not heard from? Yeah, what do you got?
Self, and I feel like I'm very like observing person, and I love being like in my thoughts and also analytical and like analyze everything around me. I do like spending time with myself, but what's interesting is that my second one is social. So it's like, but I don't know why social is on here, but my third one is language. And I feel like I love teaching people things about topics that I'm like very passionate about, like speaking to people. I really do. I feel like I'm a communicative person.
And does it drive any life decisions, major or anything like that? Based on what you just told us, or
Going into nursing, so
this is real.
telling them how to do things, like what to do if they have this problem, like. I don't know.
There's this real interesting overlap I noticed because I used to advise nursing students, and I have found that there's always seems to be this like teaching nursing overlap. Like you enjoy teaching, but maybe you're a nurse, or you were a nurse and you decide to become a teacher, or you're like there's a teaching aspect within the nursing field. I think it's the whole idea of like being a helper, trying to help people or help them better their lives or learn something new. What else? Two more people that we have not heard from. Sure. Julia.
So I was surprised. My first one was social. And when I hear that word, I'm like, well, I could be a total schmuck in like social situations. I was like, I don't know what that's about. But then when I was reading the things more, then I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. Generally learning to help people and like being to ask questions to kind of figure out what the problem is and then communicate it in a way and help figure out the problem. 100% would get me to what I thought would be number one would be more of the math and logic, because like that's just how I'm naturally wired. I love the patterns and just categorize things, and it's just very methodical in the way that like I look at things. So I was surprised about why it's actually great. So yeah, but I like it, but I'm broken.
Okay, so that is in line. Okay, cool. Couple more people we have not heard. Yeah, what do you got?
Good, thank you. I think it makes sense, cause like in high school, I took like horticulture and agriculture, and I thought it was fun. And like in biology and stuff, my favorite units were always like ecology and more like the evolution and like bigger scale stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really relate to my major. I'm doing nursing, but I don't think like I want to work like on a farm or anything. So I don't know what. Like, I don't think it matters that like your phone is fun. I don't really want to work.
Or maybe that's what you do on vacations. Maybe you do something like that when you go on vacation and you enjoy it, but you still do the nursing route. Sure, gardening. Yeah. I've haven't done gardening in a while, but it can be really relaxing. So nice. Good, what do you got?
So nature was my top one too. So yeah, like I've never been drawn to nature. Like throughout my day, I just like love to sit and like watch out the window. You know, it's like one of my top favorite things to do. See what's going on outside. Which is interesting because I am going into nursing. So, and I do work in a hospital where there's like not a lot of nature. But like recently I've been thinking about like what if there's a way to like work in a holistic clinic that used nature, you know. So my other ones were like self and spatial, which makes a lot of sense. I do like being like being with myself and pretty visual.
It's really something that I learned. I think is kind of funny with nature. I was just a really interesting podcast, but they were like one of them was a PhD. It was really interesting behavior, and it's psychological actually, with squirrels. So, you know, when they do the thing where they bury like the acorn and it's like this ritual, they actually found that theft is widespread by other squirrels from taking their acorns, their nuts. So what they actually do is they this whole thing and then they bury it somewhere else. So they're basically like, psych, and they go just to mess with the other squirrels. So with all the nature themes, it kind of remind me of that interesting behavior. So
But their physical brain, or like they get like smarter, like so they can during like the winter time, so they like remember where they buried their nuts.
I have not heard that, but I could see that making sense. That could be like a survival thing. They also found the further away they buried it, less theft there was. But then they had trouble remembering how far away they had buried stuff too, I think, in the podcast. But it's interesting if maybe they get smarter so they can eat. That makes sense. But then like what happens? Do they get dumber during the summer and then
Yeah.
smarter again? That's really fascinating. If that's what's
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I heard. So
Oh. Interesting. Most maybe we got another 2, 3 more people, I think. We got Shenzel.
First one was self. Second was body movement. And third was nature. Oh no, nature is cool. Yeah, like it's nice to look at, and like nature. Think about grass. But yeah, the first 2 weeks, like so, I think a lot, I can analyze, so try to make sense of things. So I like learning. Body movement makes sense. I like sitting down too long. Working out.
Pretty accurate. Anything that drives major life decisions, anything like that?
I think so. Be a nurse. Understand people. Not like a psychologist, but more like understanding empathy. I know I could tell when some feels uncomfortable for you.
You know, like stuff like that.
Oh, so a little bit of like an intuitive sense.
Yeah.
Nice. More people, all right? Yeah, you guys got. Anything on like the life decisions or major tied to that? I think that makes sense. Okay.
I got social and, musical and spatial. So, I'm also going to nursing. And, yeah, I feel like it's kind of related.
Okay. By the way, so we have a lot of nursing majors. I'm pretty sure for most nursing programs, statistics is a requirement. I teach statistics here. There's something called the AccuPlacer you probably had to take. You may or may not have placed into statistics. You can get into statistics with a permit request, which is an override. That is up to me, not the college. So I've been signing students into statistics for years and overriding the system, trying to help you guys. There's a upper division math that usually transfers down to the lower division. And the little bit of algebra that you need, I lecture to that. And you can look on Rate My Professors for COD about the reviews. I cannot promise any grade, but I have a lot of A's and B's and C's. I mean, yes, students do get D's and F's sometimes, usually if they're not doing their work. About a little less than half's the homework. The rest are like the tests. There's pre-test and post-test. You get unlimited attempts up to the due date. There are 3 exams, and I give you 2 attempts. And I think the higher the 2 scores, and then all those come with unlimited time. So I try to give you really good conditions for learning the material. And I give you formulas, um, like a sheet that you can bring to the test. And it's a test bank, so none of you get the same test anyway. So like that keeps the academic integrity up. So just food for thought. If you like my teaching style and you need a stats course, I don't know what I have for next term. I usually teach statistics here 2-3 times a year. There's like 4 of us to teach it. I'm one of the 4 at the college that teach psych statistics. So if you didn't do well in the AccuPlace, regardless of what your admissions advisor said, I did that job also in the past. That's how I started in higher education. And they tell you, oh, don't take it or take all these other math. You could come to me and I could waive it. The only rule I have is if I waive it and I lectured all the algebra stuff, there's no coming back at the end of the semester because you didn't do the work and being angry with me because I assigned you into statistics. I think that's pretty fair in terms of like expectations. So if it is something you all want to do or need to knock out, I could absolutely sign you in. And I do see a lot of psych students in my stats courses. And like I said, I have tons of reviews, like probably 135 of them or so from COD students that have been encouraging to be honest with my professors. I think I have like 1 or 2 haters, but most of them, you all said that was pretty awesome. So if that applies to you, then I can help you with that. Love to see you again. Usually it's a night class. I'm teaching it right now, but I probably wouldn't assign you in this late in the game because we're already like on chapter 5 out of 12. So I don't want you to be successful. So if you have something more urgent than that, we could sidebar, but I think that's everybody, right? Somebody that I missed. Pretty sure everybody spoke up. So let's go back into I think we're right here. Yep. So what is intelligence? We have things like intelligence tests, theories of multiple intelligences, the neuroscience of intelligence. For example, we could say Shakespeare said, "What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how expressed and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god." Intelligence is one of our most prized possessions. However, even the most intelligent people have not been able to agree on how to define and measure the concepts of intelligence. Some experts describe intelligence as the ability to solve problems. Well, said that too. Others describe it as a capacity to adapt and learn. We said that. Others argue that intelligence includes characteristics such as creativity and interpersonal skills. Now, interpersonal skills are important. A friend that skipped 7th grade, great. Glad you skipped 7th grade. I was a little angry about it at the time because I had to go through 7th grade. He holds a bachelor's degree, works in IT in Oregon. He doesn't have a lot of interpersonal and great skills or not a whole lot of social intelligence, which you all, some of you all said, hey, I have social intelligence. Oh, and by the way, guys, I did take the test too, along with you. This is where I came up. I think this made sense. I had a 4.57 on logic math, critical thinking. I think that makes sense for my profession. I hope so. Language, I speak a couple of them. That kind of makes sense. And social, I think I'm pretty social. I think that makes sense for the career. So, so he hit me up on LinkedIn, like, I don't know, maybe a couple of years ago to try to reconnect. So I was catching up, and he struggled as a young adult and as a teenager to even date. He just was a little socially handicapped. So he tells me that he's been living with this woman for like 8 years. So, hey, no judgment, wherever you are, like I'm gonna be accepting. So what's going on with this woman that you live with? Is this your girlfriend? Is this your fiance? Is this your wife? Like, what's up? We don't do labels. Like, okay, well, guess we're done having that conversation. But he's probably some areas he's maybe potentially smarter than me, but I'm a little bit further in terms of education than he did. So I don't know. Intelligence is hard to define. And so it can't be directly measured, unlike height and weight. Intelligence can only be evaluated indirectly by studying and comparing the intelligent acts people perform. Say it in there. Should not be. The primary components of intelligence are similar to the cognitive processes of thinking and memory. Individual differences are stable, consistent ways in which people differ from one another. Individual differences in intelligence generally have been measured by intelligence tests designed to tell us whether a person can reason better than others who have taken the test. Another way we can look at intelligence would be here's your bell curve. So real traditional model, 100, that's like average. Everybody in this room is probably here or higher because like here. Every 15 points or so represents something in this direction that you can or cannot cognitively do. Every 15 points this direction represents something you cannot cognitively do. That's when you see differences in intelligence. Pretty sure you gotta be about here or just below in kindergarten in terms of the traditional model. The idea is to take the chronological, someone's mental age divided by their chronological age. So if someone's 10, you can assess them. If they're 15, 20, 30, so on, you all have you'd have a similar score. But the problem with that is, like, I think if anybody remembers from Gen Psych, there's low key, like a woman with Down syndrome was a lobbyist in Washington. She probably wouldn't score. She would probably score on the left side, but she definitely has some good social intelligence. That's why I like the one we just did in terms of looking at intelligence more like a superpower. So vocabulary, stereotype, threat, anxiety regarding one's behavior might confirm a negative stereotype about one's group. Stereotype threat also speaks to things like stereotype vulnerability. That's where someone's aware of a stereotype that might apply to their culture or where they're from, and they don't want to emulate the stereotype. So they get so concerned about the stereotype and experience so much anxiety, they end up emulating the stereotype because they're so worried about it. We want culture fair tests, intelligence tests that are designed to avoid cultural bias, like how they're asked. We have the Bailey scales of infant development, widely used scales developed by Nancy Bailey for assessing infant development. The current version, the Bailey 3, has 5 scales. Cognitive, like processing, language, motor, socio-emotional, and adaptive. The first 3 are administered to the infant, the latter 2 to the caregiver. And then crystallized intelligence, an individual's accumulated information and verbal skills, which continues to increase with age. Can you guys think of any specific examples of crystallized intelligence?
Having a PhD, education.
Sure. Yeah.
Being a specialist.
Be a specialist. Yeah. The increased vocabulary, something you know better than other people. Yeah. Can you think of any reasons why, or maybe an example of a question that might be unfair in an intelligence test that in terms of making sure it's culture fair, doesn't have any bias, or why that would be super important?
I gave you that boat example a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to tell us again just for to refresh everyone's memory?
Yeah, or I think like SATs, there was a question about some sort of thing about boating. And then they realized, after like getting in all the scores that like
Vote.
all these kids that, live near like wealthier, like waterfronts that, own a boat, know these terms versus, all these people that don't live near water, didn't know these terms. They don't have a boat, they're not on the water, so why would they know? So I see the unfairness of the question.
Yeah, and then it's not an accurate measurement because they might be just as intelligent as people alongside them. They just don't know the vocabulary. Yeah. So children and adults type of intelligence tests. Talk about some contributions and criticisms. The Binet tests. In 1904, French Ministry of Education asked psychologist Alfred Binet to devise a method to determine which students would not profit from a typical school instruction. That's where they systemically came from. As Socratically, should we be measuring intelligence? Is there pros and cons? What do y'all think? Is that a good or bad thing to measure intelligence? Or does it matter how we measure it? Like, should we measure it like that, the one you just took? Is it problematic? Good, bad? What are your thoughts?
I think it's pretty beneficial to know what level each of the students are at. And I feel like it definitely has more pros and cons, I feel like.
You can inform things like instruction or
Yeah.
there's
And I mean, you're not telling the kid like you're stupid, like you'd be telling them.
Yeah,
Either it's forms of learned intelligence you're not stuck at
Yeah.
score.
Yeah, as long as there are like solutions, I'm not saying like you need to be fixed if you're a big fire, but like as long as there is like hope, like it's not like okay, there's stuff that's I feel like there's okay, so these are your options, this is what you can. You know what I'm saying? To like be productive in society.
Yeah.
If it's gonna be measured like that, but like I said, I don't think that's the correct way to measure intelligence, because it's like your ability to like learn something like quick. Like you're good at mathematics, but okay, we're gonna put you in math class so you can mathematics.
Oh, to like contribute back to society. I can see that. That makes sense.
That could be a little communist, so you could argue that's wrong too.
Could be a little what?
Communistic. Like,
Oh, right. Yeah. I see where you're going. Like, we should be able to pick our own careers too. Yeah. All right. Here you're putting that.
It could be a good guide for, like, in terms of like studying to, depending on like what you're better with. Like, for example, like I'm a visual person, so I'm gonna do things that are a little more visual for studying. I think it's just helpful for that.
The newest science, by the way, because I know a lot of you are probably familiar with like visual, audio, kinesthetic learning. The newer science has to do with learning connections inventory, which is your sequence, your precision, your technical reasoning, and your confluence. Technical reasoning is like figuring things out. Confluence is like a little bit like creativity, putting things together. Sequence and precision have to do with like decoding and understanding the directions and putting things in order, and even has to do with like test taking. That's a little bit more sciency. Not that there's not a thing to learning styles, but learning patterns has a little bit more research backing it up. And there's a learning connections inventory. It's like $5 online that would tell you where you would score. And then it makes recommendations on how to study and stuff. There's a lot of theory behind it. Not that there's not something to the visual and the audio, but the jury's a little bit still out on that because there have been tests that like you can still learn even if it's not in your preferred modus operandi. We have fluid intelligence, the ability to reason effectively, cognitive mechanics, like the hardware of the mind reflecting the neurophysiological architecture of the brain as developed through evolution, Cognitive mechanics involves the speed and accuracy of the processes involving sensory input, visual and motor memory, discrimination, comparison, and categorization. It's like how you're putting that all together, as well as like the very hardware. Cognitive pragmatics, culture-based software of the mind. Cognitive pragmatics includes reading and writing skills, language comprehension, educational qualifications, professional skills, self-knowledge, and life skills. That helps us master or cope with life, like what we're talking about. Wisdom, expert knowledge about practical aspects of life that permits excellent judgment about important matters. But I think measuring wisdom can be a bit problematic. We would probably say people that are the more old someone is, like the more years been on the planet, they probably the more wisdom they have. But how do you really assess wisdom? I think that's really a challenge. Or maybe there's an answer Socratically. Or any thoughts or in your own words of what this might mean or how this might apply? Or does it completely make sense and fit well for you?
That wisdom, that prior knowledge over time becomes obsolete as things change over time, for example, like a parent or grandparent might telling you what to do for a job interview, and nowadays most job interviews are like done mostly online or something.
Yeah. I actually had a weird one recently. It wasn't AI. They called it Higher View. And it's fine. I'll get them eventually. Took me like a few years with a different one. There's a household name school that I keep applying to. They've kept denying me. So this time they got me an interview. I was like, all right, you got this. And then it was weird. It was like 5 questions. 2 of them you type with an unlimited time limit, and 3 of them you answer on video. And they give you 1 minute to think about the question. There's not a person. And then you record up to 3 minutes of your answer. And I've interviewed before. I've conducted interviews. I had some pretty solid answers. And they were like, well, we don't like your qualifications. Yet they gave me the interview based on my qualifications. So it's fine. I'll just apply next year and the year after that until I get them. It's fine. I did that somewhere else, and they recently gave me full professor. So whatever. They told me for years I wasn't qualified. So I'll get them eventually. I just was like surprised. But it was really, really weird interviewing because like there was a non-live person. Like, how did you even assess that? You couldn't even ask follow-up questions like, where's the critical thinking? So, but it was weird because I only had like a minute. So I'm like, which story do I tell? Like, and then I was like, should I have been more vulnerable in the interview and told more stories? They ask you like strengths, weaknesses, stuff like that, like just the standard stuff. But then like to your point, like my mentor, who's seven, have that before we move on. Not this guy. No, not this guy. I have a professor friend who's like in his like early 70s, and I ask him stuff. He usually has pretty good advice about the profession. He actually told me, he's like, you will learn more about your field just by teaching it, besides your education and your training and from your students. He said change jobs every 5 years, and I'm like, I need to change my job like right now. Not here. I have kick-ass leaders here. The day job. So and I'm surprised at like the linear thinking of my boss, because literally yesterday she was like, well, you can't have student success seminars that take that long. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then the qualitative data that we get that's really great with all the adjectives describing the experience, that will go away if I start rushing through them. And she said nothing. I'm like, you have a PhD. But I think she has low-key Alzheimer's. I can't prove it, but I think something's going on. She's about 10, 15 years older than me based on what I think about her age. And I think she's trying to hang on to her job until retirement. I think that's what's going on. So children and adults types of intelligence tests. So we talked about Alfred Binet. He constructed the first intelligence test as being being asked to create a measure to determine which child could benefit from instruction in French schools, which cannot. We talked about that. So this is the percent of scores. This is the normal distribution. So that's that bell curve in terms of where people usually score. Most of the population falls in the middle range of scores. Notice that extremely high and extremely low scores are very rare. Slightly more than 2/3 of the scores fall between 85 and 115. Only about 1 in every 50 individuals has an IQ higher than 130, and only about 1 in every 50 has an IQ lower than 70. So generally, that's the bell curve. So creativity, the ability to think in novel and unusual ways, to come up with unique solutions to problems. Divergent thinking, thinking that produces many answers to the same question, which is a characteristic of creativity. Convergent thinking, thinking that produces one correct answer, characteristic of the kind of thinking required on conventional intelligence tests. Then brainstorming technique, in which individuals are encouraged to come up with creative ideas in a group, play off each other's ideas, and then say practically whatever comes to mind that is relevant to a particular issue. Okay, so any examples of these, or any of these hold more value than another one in terms of looking at intelligence? Or why is creativity important? Or what are some myths about creativity? Because, Steve Jobs was fired for lack of creativity before he started Apple, by the way.
I think there's going to be slightly important because of so many different minds and so many different ideas.
Yes, yeah.
And then someone could build off of their idea, but they wouldn't have thought of what they're thinking if they didn't hear their suggestion.
Yeah.
You know, they could build off.
Yeah, it can be infectious in a way like, yeah. Whoever creatively solved the problem using creative intelligence. The solutions don't make sense, and then you like come up with something that is kind of maybe a blend, or maybe based on a heuristic. You put something together. You got Julia.
Like, generally speaking, creativity is like undervalued in the educational system. So generally speaking, like if there's a budget cut, usually like the arts and music, whatever, the arts department is like the first to get reduced. And in a way, like, yeah, I just kind of like question.
Well, that's the great thing to question, because the lights took 10,000 attempts to get the light bulb right. The light bulb was a 10,000 attempt in a row until it was figured out. What if he quit on 9999? To your point about creativity, like creativity is hugely important, but they do like to cut that sometimes. Like, oh, we'll do STEM, math, and science. And there's absolutely value for that, but creativity fundamentally changes the world for the better a lot of times, where we get things like inventions or things that make our lives better or easier to do things. Does the difference between divergent and convergent thinking make sense? Or do you want to walk through an example or two? Does everybody have this before I move on to the next slide? Okay. So here's some other ways we might look at it. So this is a sample subscale from the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, 5th edition, so WISC 5. The Wechsler includes 16 verbal and nonverbal subscales. 3 of them are shown here. So similarities, a child must think logically and abstractly to answer a number of questions about how things might be similar. In what way are a lion and tiger alike, for example? Comprehension, the subscale is designed to measure an individual's judgment and common sense. Example, what is the advantage of keeping money in a bank? Block design, a child must assemble a set of multicolored blocks to match designs that the examiner shows. Visual motor coordination, perceptual organization, and the ability to visually, spatially put things together are assessed. Example, use the 4 blocks on the left to make the pattern on the right, for example.
This is still used today, right?
Yeah.
I remember
Mostly.
going through this a bunch of times.
Yeah.
That's just like, as he was studying, you would have to like come home and do tests on somebody, and he'd always use.
Yeah. Sounds like your dad followed PHA's model a little bit. And I mean that, of course, with kindness. Yeah.
That's my favorite part.
That was also my favorite part.
Nice. We have the balanced theory of wisdom. Sternberg's theory that wisdom consists of using one's intelligence, creativity, common sense, and knowledge in a balanced ethical manner. Individuals should apply their wisdom in a balanced way across interpersonal and extrapersonal contexts to promote the common good. Can you think of an example of how this might be used? Or a situation, balanced theory of wisdom? Are you tied to your major or tied to a task you might do? Well, that's simmering. We also have intellectual disability, a condition of limited mental ability in which an individual has a low IQ, usually below 70 on the traditional model over there, and has difficulty adapting to the demands of everyday life. Giftedness, having above average intelligence, IQ of 130 or greater or higher, and or superior talent for something. Does giftedness guarantee success? Why or why not? Or can you give an example of the balanced theory of wisdom? If someone's gifted, does it guarantee things like success? And you can also think about how you might define success, but is it a guarantee if someone's gifted at something? Why or why not?
I think giftedness doesn't guarantee success, but it helps a lot on the way to success. I feel like.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, like for example, in school, you may not have to study as much, or you can put in a lot less effort to school. I have a friend who's he's like, you can tell just by hanging around him that he's like very intelligent. He has like a photographic memory and everything. It comes with a lot of issues, interestingly. A lot of like smart people, they have a lot of issues as well. But
Well, like my friend that was socially handicapped that I was telling you guys about, like didn't date till like well into adulthood. Like,
I mean, they're not like super obvious. They were more obvious when he was little, but then he kind of like started growing out of them. But like he never seen him study. But he always passes. Like he always does really good in school. But I've never seen him study before. He's always just relaxing or kind of hanging out. And people always he told me like because people have told me this as a kid as well. Like, oh, you need to fix your study habit. It's not going to fly in the next grade. But every grade people tell him that the next grade is not going to fly and it flies again. So he's like, oh no, never studied before.
there have been tests. A lot of people that say that they don't study are usually a little bit of closet studiers. I'm not saying that he's not just hanging out all the time, but there probably is some reading or at least some paying attention to the material, even if it's in class. There's
He's
some.
attention in class, but I think outside of class, he doesn't put in much effort to study. Like for a test coming up outside of class, he won't really study, but during class, he's paying attention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you going to ask something? I just stretch. Okay. So what do you have this so far? Any other questions, thoughts, comments? So the use and misuse of intelligence tests. We have theories of multiple intelligence, Sternberg's triarchy theory, and Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences, which we'll walk through. So Sternberg developed the triarchy theory of intelligence. We have Howard Gardner working with a young child. Does anyone know how many intelligences Gardner believes there are and what they are? You might have seen this in Gen Psych. We will walk through them, but it's more than 5. There's 9. There were originally 7 and then it became 9 later. Yeah. Okay, one of them's not on here. There's 9. We'll walk through them all. So there's verbal, the ability to use words and language to express meaning, occupations, authors, journalists, speakers, mathematical, like in terms of careers, mathematical, can you carry out mathematical operations, scientists, engineers, accountants, spatial, the ability to think three-dimensionally, occupations, architects, artists, sailors, and artists and sailors, body kinetic, the ability to manipulate objects and be physically adept, occupations, surgeons, craftsmen, dancers, athletes. the one that's not on here is existentialist, the ability to see the big picture. Like, are you a philosophical thinker? And you can go down the rabbit hole with that, where you could be like, are we really here? Is this really inevitable? Like, that's the one that's not listed on the slide, existentialist intelligence. Which of these do you think are the most applicable to either your own career or working or the real world? And which ones do you, these just on this slide do you think are maybe not so applicable that maybe you don't need? And why? Or do you need them all? Why?
The one that you don't need.
Yeah, which ones are the most just on this one alone? And or we talk about existentialism, which is like the big picture, asking questions about life, death, ultimate reality of human existence. Those are various careers such as philosophical thinkers. And or these to get us to 9. Are these super important, or are there any that we don't need? In the real world, life, career, academic, professionally, personally, etc., and why? Or do we need all of them and why, regardless of career, real world, etc., just in the first sort of half?
But, you know,
Okay. Are we just saying they're self-explanatory, or are we trying to give a reason as to why we need all of them? Right, there you go, Denzel. Yeah, absolutely. You got to balance the checkbook if you're an adult, right? I mean, yeah, I mean that there's something to that. You got to have that together, otherwise you're gonna have a lot of stress you don't need, and you might not be living where you're at very long, right? Or have a vehicle. Spatial.
navigation.
Navigation, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but I feel like, I feel like there's still a benefit to like knowing your way down here. It kind of is a good challenge for your memory to keep yourself not declining for what they would care.
You don't forget where you're at, or like, you have to, even like you think about spatial, you may think of a big picture, like I need to go to this location, right?
Yeah.
That's across the city, but like even just like I go to the bathroom, even at the bare minimum, or something I'm trying to say.
Spatial. Okay, I see that. I can see
You
that.
don't know where you're at, now you're trying to like rethink.
Yeah.
Like,
Basic for blending, like to know, like to think of things in that 3D sense and be like, I would try to make a plan if you're trying to navigate somewhere, like how long will it take me to get there, how much
Yeah.
distance is covered in like this. I know, just like picturing, like if I'm picturing going through the city and I'm not very good with spatial intelligence, I might feel like it'll take me 5 minutes, or in reality, it'll take me 10 minutes to get somewhere.
Okay,
I think a better question, which one is the most important?
sure. Why don't you either tell us or someone else can help you, one of your colleagues, or someone else can tell us which one maybe out of these are the most important and why? Yeah, is there one that's more important than the other? Or are they all just super equally valued and why?
Thing that's talking, right? So sign language thing, right? So you can sign language and mathematics. You need math, like in modern day world, even throughout history, you need to be able to like know how much of what you have.
Sure.
You know, like even back then when it was like trading and stuff, they had money. Like,
Right.
I can't give-
Still had to barter correctly.
Yeah, I can't barter my sheet. I got one sheet, but if you don't understand counting it, like, oh, I get my sheet, you're like, oh my gosh. Now I don't have clothes, you know, so. I'd say, honestly, mathematics be number one. But you can still communicate with mathematics, you do that.
I like to, I feel like verbal is not as talk, like, I feel like sign language doesn't get around the verbal, it doesn't include it. Because verbal is defined as using language in general
Yeah.
to express meaning. So
I was literally
it's not
gonna
just
bring that
like-
up, but yeah, that's great that you did. Yeah.
Language.
Yeah.
Okay, no, all.
All right. All right. What about our next patch? Musical, interpersonal, interpersonal, naturalist. And like the one that's not on there is existential, the bigger picture to get us to 9. Yeah, existentialist. The textbook got this wrong. He did add it. He was thinking about it, but then he went ahead and added it. Okay, so that's why it's 9.
Which will be most important and least important will be musical.
would agree with that. I feel like that's self-explanatory. I mean, unless your profession's music, do you really need that? What do you got? Please do.
With the musical, there's also the elements of like vibrations and sound waves and like keyword megahertz and stuff. So there's that element to it, the scientific part where there's like it can be healing or it can do certain things with the mental waves.
Or mental health.
Yeah, and then and also with musical, like it's just it's another vehicle for expression.
But I think we're not saying that it's unimportant, we're just saying that it's the least important on the list. I
Yeah.
mean, at least that's what I understood.
Yeah, that was what
Yeah.
the thinking was. Now, if you enjoy music and it helps you de-stress or helps there, I'm sure there's the case for that. I know a lot of us probably have our podcast, our Spotify rather playlist that we listen to. That sometimes you get that great song, you're like, I'm in a much better mood, or start your day well, or driving. That could certainly work with like emotional health, things like that.
Yeah, like I feel like it's definitely important, but it doesn't take over like interpersonal or interpersonal. I feel like if you had to pick between the two, you pick.
Yeah, you got to play nice to the others and yourself. Like seriously, you got to know these things. Like if you're like, oh, I want to be like nearly every job, you can't just like lock yourself in the Zoom room and not interact with anyone. Like even if you work out of the house, you probably need some of these. Unfortunately, I deal with someone who doesn't really have one of these, either one of these, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time, or I'll find a new job. It'll be okay. So it's okay. Someone's going to leadership training. So let's see. So should we take a 10-minute break? We're about halfway through. How's everyone doing on the energy? Or should we take a break in a little bit? Should we go now? Take a break? Take 10? Let's come back in like 10 minutes. So it's 7:22, 7:32. And then we'll talk about emotional intelligence and what that is. And I'll give you guys some examples of good and bad emotional intelligence. I think that's a really cool jacket, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm a little biased because like this is
Yeah,
mine and it's similar in style. So
thank you.
yeah.
Um, for the Connect assignments,
Yes.
I got Connect. I did about half the assignments on there,
Okay.
but you said to email you when I was starting, so I sent you an email, but I don't think you saw it yet.
I don't know if I saw it yet. So I just moved over. How far did you get?
So I did. We just have to do the ones labeled assignment and quiz, right? Or do
I
we
think
have-
I think it makes you read.
Does it?
I think
Because
it,
I was able to
'cause-
do the assignments without reading the chapter.
really.
Yeah, unless it wasn't counting it because it was late.
Okay.
Because the quizzes I wasn't able to start, so that's what I assumed you had sent to email you about.
Yeah,
But
probably. I don't know if I
because-
saw it yet. I was in my email. So I moved over. What did you? Oh, you started all of them like very recently. Is
like,
that right?
like last or not really? No, maybe like Monday.
So what due dates are you running? Oh, you're running the due dates.
The quizzes. I wasn't able to do any of the quizzes.
Okay.
Yeah, those ones wouldn't let me in. The assignments I was able to do. I don't know if it was like in practice mode or something though for the assignments.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of them in bulk. Probably last time I'm going to move them in bulk, and then it'll have to be like exceptions for people. But I want to help you, and it is a little bit easier administratively to move them in bulk.
Mhm.
So I'm moving them all over to everything up through chapter 8 will be due like so connect orientation videos. I don't have to move the midterm. That should be fine. Chapter 1. Okay, chapter 2. Be sure. So I don't miss any of them. So that's October 12th, October 19th. Okay. So I move everything from 1 through 6 over. Today's only the 9th. And I move those over by like a week to the 16th.
Okay.
That should put you in a pretty good. Why is it not letting me do that?
And does it show that I've done the assignments 1 through 5?
If it did the recharge, then it won't for sure.
I'm seeing what.
Um, if it said recharge, that means it's saying you can learn it, but it's not giving you credit. What is it doing? Or if you email me one by one, I can go in administratively in like the next day or two and move them over or do an exception. It just takes a little bit longer to do it like on a break.
Okay.
Did you email me exactly what you needed in your email?
I just needed the quizzes, and I only.
Oh, just the quizzes. Oh,
But I'm not sure, because I'm not sure if it let me do the assignments or not. So like, is there a way that you can check if I did it or not?
yeah. I can go to the performance dashboard. Hang on.
You can just check like assignment number 1. If it says I've done it, then.
That would tell us, sure.
Yeah.
Um, performance. Here we go. Assignment results. Chapter 1. View. Yeah, you got like close to like an A on assignment 1. So it is recording. It is recording stuff. But if you run into any kinks and you tell me exactly what you need, I can move stuff
Okay.
on one by one. And then once you're like on pace, then it would just be the due dates the rest of the term that are out there. But the thing I've been trying to tell everybody, I think before you walked in, is trust Connect, don't trust Blackboard. Either use a syllabus with the due dates that I put on there and or Connect, that should be pretty accurate. If you go into like what Blackboard's telling you, once it connected and pushed the dates over, it won't seem to accept the new dates. And I don't want everyone to be frustrated all semester being like, I thought I didn't have to do this assignment and now I've missed it. I'm rooting for you guys and I want to support you. Of course, I'm going to do that, but I also want to like empower you with like where to look so that you don't run into that. And it's not a headache for everybody. So,
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Welcome. Hi.
I'll send you mail.
Maybe I didn't get it yet.
No, no, right now.
Oh. Oh, like today?
No, like last Thursday.
Did I miss it? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I got, maybe I got buried. Usually I'm really good at the emails, but how can I help?
So the thing is, on my Blackboard,
Yeah, you can't trust Blackboard. Blackboard's going to tell you wrong stuff. I don't want it to. It's because of the integration. If you go directly into Connect, it'll tell you the right dates. But if Blackboard told you something wrong and you tell me, if I need to add more time to help you so that you can still get credit, I will totally do that.
if you can, yeah, I need it. Was not showing this from my Blackboard, so if you can.
Can you refresh? Because I think I just moved yeah, those are all say 10/16. Look. I moved the dates over.
Yes, it was not showing that before.
Yeah, I did that like tonight, like maybe an hour or two ago. So you should be able to go in and then complete those and get credit for those, and they should post to Blackboard.
So
Because-
they post it.
Yeah, they will automatically push. If they don't, I do a way to manually do that. I think they push either when you do them or after the date after, like as soon as the date passes. So like 10/17, they should post, if not sooner as you do them.
Before, can you like push the chapter 6 and this quest thing, which was,
5,
no, this
That-
one, the last one.
sure. Let me see. You mean like what chat is it 6?
Yeah, I'm guessing the 6 ones, the milestones and the.
See if I should be able to find it. Hang on.
So Blackboard just got very confusing.
Not my goal. Every other semester Connect is super helpful. Students love it. The dates match, and then it's just like a train wreck. Which like blows me away because usually it's like way not like this and
In-
like easy.
Chapter 1, it's still not pushing the quiz.
If it's just one grade on like chapter 1, I can manually punch it in and hit post to Blackboard.
You can, okay.
That's easy.
Okay.
I just need to make sure I just need to do it. And emails are fine. It's always okay to also text like, hey, did you get the email? Hey, what's going on?
Okay.
That's totally okay. So sometimes I'll see those faster than emails. I check my emails at all schools every few days. Occasionally I miss it or it goes into spam, but I'm not ever trying to ignore you guys.
Yeah.
But you could be like, hey, did you get the email? I sent it to you a day ago or something. And I could be like, hey, let me check. I have a privacy screen on my computer, and when my boss is not close by, at my day job, I can go in and like modify something quick and then go back to work. So Chapter 6.
Chapter 6 was due last week, right?
Yeah, but I just moved it over to the 16th
Oh, okay.
already. I moved a bunch of the milestones over too. The only thing that would be like old to be like chapter 4 right now, but I moved chapter 5 through 8 over tonight. So they should be unlocked for you on your side.
Okay.
But if they're not, tell me. And also sometimes, no, I think it works on tablets the same because it's a pretty new system. Occasionally the computer and the tablet version might be different. So just like if it doesn't work on the tablet, which it should, and then you try it on the computer and it still doesn't work, then there's a problem. But if it doesn't work on the tablet and it works on the computer, then it's because how it's written. Yeah, no problem. Something.
So it's not, is it on the one on this side?
I went to the one down there, cause I didn't know.
There's one on this side though.
Yeah, there definitely is, I like the fourth entrance.
Okay. Is it, okay.
It's like, right. So let's talk about emotional intelligence. How would you guys define emotional intelligence? What do you feel emotional intelligence is?
Like the ability to read other people. And be able to understand how someone is feeling or thinking.
You're on the right track. There's a little bit more, but you're definitely on the right track, Clay. What do you got, Sarah? Okay. Yeah. Emotional competence is one of the features. Emotional competence is like you understand what you're feeling. There's one other thing that's definitely a part of emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence also has to do with like keeping track of your own emotions and like reacting appropriately to situations emotionally wise.
So we would call that emotional regulation. So emotional competence, like you understand what's going on. Emotional regulation, you react the appropriate way to a situation, good or bad. So emotional competence. Emotional regulation. Make it up. Emotional IQ. Now we can measure it low or high. If you do these things poorly, it's low. If you think well, it's typically a high emotional IQ. Give you guys some examples. Unless you have some examples of a low or high emotional IQ you've experienced in life. I did have like a random bad day a couple of years ago where the person that messed up my tropical smoothie really got reamed out because I had like car problems. I was arguing with like my parents earlier in the day. I think I was arguing with the woman I was dating. Like it was just and then like that was the last straw. And I just kind of lost it on the tropical smoothie person. It was not okay, but it was a low emotional IQ. And that's a challenge for electrical chemical systems. But I'll give you guys some better examples. I used to work in this really toxic place, and a coworker of mine, well, let's wind the story back so that you get all the pieces. They used to take us to Las Vegas once a year. It was a thing. They'd pay for our flight. They'd pay for us to go to the hotel. And there was I believe you might have heard the story. The 2 drink minimum, like they had drink tickets on Sunday night. They were there Monday, Tuesday. My coworker saw her manager do a line of coke in Vegas. I guess what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, or maybe not. She got in trouble for a lack of production in this very high pressure job. So she got called on the carpet by her manager and her director, and they took her in a room. They're like, "Where's your production?" And instead of being like, "I'm working on it, I'll figure it out," she says, "Shut up, you fucking cokehead." So her manager pushed her. She got up and she roundhoused and decked her boss in the eye, gave her a black eye. The meeting ended. She went back to her desk. She called human resources and told them what happened. They said, "Well, we have to investigate." They called the manager down there with the black eye. They're like, "What's up with your eye, Beth?" Oh, sorry, say the name. And she was like, "I fell." They called the director down there separately, and he was like, "I was in the room. It never happened. I would have seen it." And the day went on, but that's still a low emotional IQ. You don't react like that to your leadership, even if you don't agree with them. That is a very low, horrible emotional IQ, and you don't want to do that ever in life. I'm actually surprised that they all worked there as long as they did. That's potentially assault. Like it's pretty bad. I also worked at this place and I went out on vacation for a doctoral residency. It wasn't really a vacation. I took a Wednesday off to decompress, a Thursday to fly. Then I was in class for 19 hours, 8 hours on a Friday, 8 hours on a Saturday, 3 hours on a Sunday. Flew back Sunday night, took Monday to decompress, showed up on Tuesday to go back to work. My manager and my director were like, "Come with us." They're like, where's your production? And instead of getting up and decking them in the face, I said I was on vacation. And then before I went to take another breath, they said, "You're being complacent." Emotional competence, emotional regulation. Emotional competence probably raged me on the eyeballs. Like, really? I was on vacation. Like, why are you busting my chops? I've been here for years. I know how to produce. It's only Tuesday, CTFD. Like, you guys do not have to do this. In fact, if you don't get the 4 by Friday, we're going to write you up.
It sounds like the punch in the face worked out better.
That's funny. So, is someone out there? Oh,
Manager, boyfriend.
if they need you, or I'm just
I
waving.
don't think so.
Okay. So I went back to my desk. I better get to 4, and I have 1 to 3 leads a week. The best salesmen and women in the world convert at about 20%. So my manager starts emailing. He's selling most of my phone call, and he starts emailing me about what to say on the phone, which is really pissing me off at this point. Okay, like knock it off. So we had this group of people in compliance, which are basically salesmen, saleswomen flunkies. They weren't good at their job and they got transferred to compliance. And they would silently listen to your calls. They would flag you on dumb stuff like, "You didn't say call was monitored or recorded in the first for several seconds." Yeah, because the person hung up on me. I didn't get to 2 minutes. I have 2 minutes to say the thing. You need to calm down. And something they loved to flag me on was speaking in Spanish to build rapport. I wasn't fluent then, but I knew enough to use it as a technique genuinely to establish rapport and identity with some people that the primary language might have been Spanish. Well, I happened to be on the phone with someone that it was when they were doing, my manager was doing this. So I immediately started speaking Spanish to her because I was pissed off. I was like, because they didn't know what I was saying. I did that intentionally to maybe mask my anger, but still, I'm not punching my manager in the face. Well, a little emotional regulation, probably a little bit of sarcasm. Got off the phone. I walked over. I'm like, "Please, Roger, don't manage like that. Because if you want me to get the 4 by Friday, I can't work under those conditions." Like, this is not a threat. I'm just telling you, like, I can't get there if you're going to manage me like that. I want to get there. I'd like to get to 4 by Friday. Well, Mac, that's the only way I know how to manage. Again, if you do this, I won't get there on Friday. And he repeats it again. It's the only way I know how to manage. So I said, "Walk with me, talk with me." I walked him over to my cubicle. I had this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that had a call strategy that was not chaos theory, and that I would sort the leads a different way every hour on the hour. And every first, fourth, seventh, 10th, and 12th phone call in a row, I would reach somebody. Like, I'm not making 20 calls without talking to somebody, which leads to lead conversion and hitting the number you all want. I'm going to call leads like this. And if I don't get the 4 by Friday, you can micromanage me next week. I won't even give you an attitude. All right, Mac, you're on. Walks away. So then I'm at my desk. And for maybe me to like Daniel, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, the owner of the company, my manager, and the vice president of our department and the company, same guy, are all talking to each other. We have this thing called Hunt, where basically what it was is you get a Hunt shift where you get signed into the system. And if someone called the company directly, the call would roll to you as a reward as a salesman or saleswoman. But you had to be scheduled for a shift. And at the time, in terms of leads and reassigning them to a different rep, it was between the lead switch people, which were all about compliance and the rules, or the manager. They were still cage fighting. They had not determined who was responsible for that. Later was lead switch, but at this time it was not. They were still trying to figure that out. I made friends with IT, and I had a software program on my computer that allowed me to sign into the system, and other people did too. That's how you sign into Hunt. So it was a matter, we call it approach. And psychology. Pick one of two negative outcomes. Get fired for not getting the 4 by Friday or written up, which leads to being fired. Get fired for manipulating the system in terms of lead flow. Not an ethical violation, a rule of engagement violation. The lead would have would have gone to someone else. It wasn't like hurting someone. It was just, I'm going to get the sale instead of someone else. So I'm like, what do I do? So hell yeah, I totally signed myself into Hunt. I start talking to the person. They're super excited. Start putting notes in. I wrote Hunt call. I sent the lead switch to the manager. As soon as the manager would have read that, he would have known I was breaking the rules. He lead switches it, walks over by me and winks at me. I'm like, okay, we're going to play like this. Cool, it's on. So I end up signing that person up. And then one of the 4 leads I got for that week was ready. So I got the 2. But I was hardcore angry with them at this point. So I was putting all the paperwork in my drawer, not handing it in. Then I reached out to my current client base and got 2 referrals and said, call ahead, tell them I'm calling. And then I converted those leads that were self-generated and got to 4. And it was like solid Wednesday, Thursday. It was not Friday yet. I remember it was absolutely not Friday. Walked over and I was like, 4. He goes, you're sandbagging. I'm like, no, I'm not good. But I still was managing it way better than the example I described. So emotional IQ is hugely important. When to speak up, when not to speak up in terms of intelligence. So for emotional IQ. So here's how we look at it in the brain, intelligence in the brain. And that was actually, that job is what drove me to this role, by the way. I was like, I cannot work like this forever. We'd have these stand-up meetings where they were like, what are you going to predict? And if you got it wrong, they would take money away from you. Like, who has a crystal ball? Like, it's ridiculous. In fact, they used to say, what are you going to do? And finally I said, I'm going to go on vacation 3 out of 4 times. I did. People called in on their own and signed up and would not work with anybody else because I would tell them on the front end, if you like my level of service, ask for me when you're ready. So the manager tried to lead switch them and give them away to my coworkers. And they were like, nope, we're not working. We're not going to sign up. It's like, how are you doing it? So it was very much like a Yoda moment. Do or do not. There is no try. So temporal lobe, frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, cerebellum. Researchers have found that a higher level of intelligence is linked to a distributed neural network in the frontal and parietal lobes. To lesser extent in the frontal parietal network, the temporal and occipital lobes, as well as the cerebellum, also have been found to have links to intelligence. The current consensus is that intelligence is likely to be distributed across brain regions rather than being localized in a specific region, such as the frontal lobes. Yeah.
This class that was talking about that part between the brain, is it the corpus callosum?
Yeah,
Where,
it's the it connects the 2 sides of the brain. Yeah.
that it's Einstein's brain, and that what they found out was that his was extra thick over there.
That was not this class.
Okay, and part of it, they correlated that with him like playing some kind of instrument for hours on end or something like that. That's how we did it.
I had not heard that. It's a super interesting study. I totally realized that wasn't familiar with that research. So we talked about this. Any thoughts on what is through? Let's see. Well, the last question. DVDs being sold to parents who want to measure their child's IQ, or maybe a USB drive. Several parents tell you that they purchase the DVD or USB drive to assess their children's IQ. Why might you feel skeptical about giving your children an IQ test and interpreting their results yourself? What might be problematic about that?
You're an expert. If
Yeah.
you might be interpreting it wrong, or there might be nuances or exceptions that you.
Yeah.
Unless you are a psychologist.
Yeah. But there could also be bias too. Yeah. So let's talk about the key controversies, differences in IQ tests, hereditary environment, like influences. So what do you think are some influences of hereditary and environment, genetic or environmental influences that might influence intelligence, like examples of those?
I think the advanced placement classes, like environmental influences, it pushes you to challenge yourself, and then naturally so you get more intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Like the problems and what you have access to, like levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Socioeconomic status, more resources, less resources, that could absolutely influence that. We got,
Caregivers' interests can also influence what area they kind of move towards, so if they naturally are like really inclined for nature. Or
Yeah.
music, or what have you, kids just naturally.
like, that might even apply to you. Like, it's probably from you, something like you're like, my dad's a psychologist, I have my major in psychology. But you're not sure. That could absolutely be an influence, right?
Actually, most of my life, that was like my dad's psychologist.
Okay.
And then he holds these programs, like every year. And once I got older, I started attending him. Actually, the next one is next week. As I got older, we had the programs. Then in the program, I was like, okay, actually, I do kind of like this work. I was like, I would be interested in this. And then I would, and getting iffy on it, and then doing the program again, be like, okay, yeah, no. It's like, that's happening to me right now as well, actually. So maybe next week, maybe in like 2 weeks, I'll come back after Whitney's program and be like, yeah, I'm going to psychology.
A little bit of conditioning, but yeah.
I think in order to be,
Was that?
I was gonna say that, I think in order to be the perfect, like, the thing about the teacher who has a particular affinity for like nature might teach kids a certain way, and that could affect their overall attention. Everybody's not. That'd be like, you know? Like it does, like nobody can have an advantage.
I think that's probably the most like laboratory way to do it, but I think it makes a lot of sense. I think variety is super important too. Because then you're probably catching everybody's way they want to learn, not just like one thing
Yeah, I
or
was gonna say,
another.
It still wouldn't be fair because
Yeah.
some things might be more adept to that.
Yeah.
way than- Do you have to like teach each student to their preferred way of learning?
Almost individually, which I see your argument for micromanagement, but like you might need multiple teachers in the room to give them the one-on-one attention for that to actually work. Because like this is a pretty small class. Like that's probably pretty easy to do. But like if there was double the amount of you, like it would be hard to like be as mindful of that or maybe even hear from everybody. Because it's just the size of it. Like this faculty, like the student ratio is like hugely important. And the speed in which you do assignments or activities varies based on the number of people in class too.
So you just think variety? Like,
I think variety is super important.
CT.
I think variety. Because some people love lectures, some people like activities, some people like class discussions, some people hate class discussions and love, I get it, it so varies. Like variety, I think is hugely important for learning. I try to do a lot of variety. I'm not doing enough. You guys can certainly tell me. But I but I think that's super important. But yeah, that's really good. This is a correlation between intelligence test scores and twin status. The graph represents a summary of the research findings that have compared intelligence test scores of identical and fraternal twins. An approximate 0.15 difference has been found with a higher correlation for identical twins, 0.75, and a lower correlation is how they move together of fraternal twins. I think you guys might have answered this. The question is, how might schooling influence the development of children's intelligence? I think like organically, we've kind of been talking about that throughout. The increase in IQ scores from 1932 to 1997, as measured by the Stanford Binet test, American children seem to be getting smarter. Scores of a group tested in 1932 fell along a bell-shaped curve with half below 100 and half above. Studies show that if children took the same test today, they would score above 120 on the 1932 scale. Very few of them would score in the intellectually deficient end on the left side, and about 1/4 would rank in the very superior range. Researchers are continuing to find support for the Flynn effect in the 21st century. Does anyone know what the Flynn effect is? It has to do with having basically an educated society. Like the more industrialized and educated society is, usually the more intelligent they are in terms of how we measure intelligence. If we measure like a less developed society, they're probably going to score lower, so they're not going to know as much stuff. Flynn effect. So we have some vocabulary on types of love. Affectionate love, also called companion love. The type of love occurs when the individual desires to have another person near and have a deep caring affection for the person. Triangular theory of love, Sternberg's theory that love includes three components, dimensions: passion, intimacy, and commitment. Passion, physical and sexual attraction. Intimacy, emotional feelings of warmth, closeness, and sharing in a relationship. Commitment, each partner is cognitive, like processing appraisal of the relationship and their intent to maintain the relationship even in the face of problems. That makes sense? Not make sense? Are there any comments, questions, or examples of anything you see here? Anything I can clarify in terms of the types of love we classify those, or ways in which look at the concepts? Sorry. Yeah.
So for affectionate love, is that in reference to like a friendship that could have that affectionate love, but then like is that like what the key difference is where like you wouldn't necessarily have that triangular theory of love in a
Yeah,
friendship? But
yeah.
affectionate love?
Yeah, like you can have love for a friend and it does not have to be romantic. Someone that you're close to, you can be like that you love that person. It's not necessarily be like a relative or a caregiver or a parent. If you're close to someone, regardless of like if the gender matches or not of your own, you could just care for that person. It's not necessarily romantic love. I have close friends that I can say that I love, regardless of gender, because they're just close friends. But it's certainly not triangular. It's just affectionate to your point. Like, do you care about their well-being? But probably of the group of friends, there's less of that have made it to that, right? Because you people that you're not as close to, right? So how many people do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. We have 1, 2, 3. We have 13 people. So everybody pick one, and maybe one group work as a pair, and that would probably work. And the idea would be take a few minutes and then we'll talk about them. But tell me who you're gonna pick. I mean, I can write them on the board or you can write them on the board one at a time so we don't all pick the same person. And then we'll just kind of do a brief walkthrough on the significance of these people. You guys pick or are you still thinking?
No, we pick your own game.
Jerome kicking God.
Is this like, are we doing articles about them or about like something specific?
So like, what do they like? They've all done big things in psychology. So like, what do they do? What is their theory? What are they responsible for? So like, articles about them and or something very specific. Like, if you got on that a little bit, but I'm not expecting you guys to be like huge content experts, just enough to like inform us about who they are. Yeah, cognition psychology, absolutely. Okay. On Bates, okay. Was it Joseph? Or no? Okay. Joseph. Campbell's. Alexander.
Ellen's version.
Who was that? Ellen?
I'm very angry.
Mary Ainsworth? Gotcha. It's something academic, not just Wikipedia.
EDU or not?
Yeah, edu dot, preferably edu or .org. Yeah, something like, because Wikipedia can't get it wrong. Are we gonna have people like Dr. Mac putting fake stuff on Wikipedia for fun? So I think there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's 13. So 13? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 12 and there's 13 of you. So we need one group of 2. Everybody else can do one person. That would be fine. If we start having more groups, then maybe you guys pick more than one person. The idea is to address them all. Does that make sense? I guess if we had one overlap, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So Cindy, Hazen? We get, does everybody have somebody? Do we?
We're gonna do John.
John Bates?
John Bowlby.
John Bowlby. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was like. That was completely different than what it says on here, but it's basically involves like personality development.
That's like the second half.
Right.
Actually drives that, like, or maps.
Yeah.
The other part of that. That's essentially what A's were. Did with like security aspect, but the theory is that it can drive, and there's some counter research saying it doesn't. But that it can drive future relationships, like that's actually, it is possible. That's not like, you found a good site.
Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Get a degree in degree, yeah. It says there.
What is it, the, yeah.
How's everybody doing? Like another several minutes, or are you all, how's everyone pacing? I don't want you to feel rushed or. So you guys are good? Are you still working, Julia? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Like, we can think about in the back. I think you're from body language. Good, right? Okay. Is everybody done or are people still working? If you're working, it's okay. Oh, okay. We'll take a few more minutes. I'll ask you in like another 3 to 5 how you're doing. No worries.
Yeah, we took investigators, I thought it was something. Yeah. Is it possible to be a psychologist and a psychiatrist?
Mhm.
Did you have to go to medical school?
Let's go to medical school. I did not, but
Is every psychiatrist a psychologist?
Huh.
Okay.
now there's some buzz in the community about the possibility of psychologists. It has not been like legislated yet,
Yeah.
being able to prescribe medicine. We can't do that right now.
Yeah.
But there has been some kind of push in the community because there is some training. Or if that could be a thing. It's not a thing. You still have to have an MD degree. But there are some states and some theories trying to push that as a possible thing. But there's different, like you could be a licensed IO psychologist, which is business psychology. You can bill out $200 to $800 an hour to go into a business and be like, oh, here's why your employees are quitting. Your ROI is about 50,000 per employee. Every time someone quits, I don't mean like someone's salary, I mean like getting someone through the door. So you have, I'm gonna help you, not lose as many employees. Your ROI is maybe $500,000, $200, $400 an hour, $400, $800, $200 to $800 an hour is a going rate. And then you charge them for your expertise and they save money on keeping their employees more than what they're paying you. That's another thing you can do. Or you can teach. Or you can counsel.
Required.
What?
How much more schooling is required after you're psychiatrist to become a psychologist as well? No, no.
I think it's
Oh.
so it's like I think it's like another 2 to 4 years at least to be because you have to have a bachelor's and you got med school. So I'm pretty sure that's at least another 4 years. So you're in school for you can prescribe medicine, and if you have a practice, it's not just like therapy like cognitive behavioral or EDMR or anything. Like you can all the science on therapy says if you have like the catharsis of working through the issue and talking to them and the counseling plus the medication, those are the most effective versus one or the other. So you can be like, oh, you have anxiety and depression, let me prescribe you some Xanax, and you can.
But psychiatrists don't have to prescribe medicine, right? Like
They usually do, but they don't have to. But they usually do because they have the ability to. A psychologist is more like I'm going to walk through the therapy, and most psychiatrists are also psychologists because you have to have
okay, do you
typically.
get extra expertise by becoming a psychologist when you walk through, like do therapy with someone?
Yeah.
Just prescribe the medicine.
Yeah, and typically a psychiatrist will do the therapy and the medicine, and a psychologist will just do the therapy. But both, in a sense, are a form of therapy because you're regulating the chemicals in the brain better. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. 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 How are you doing, Savannah? Is everybody good or anybody still working? Should we do a round robin? So basically just like tell us who you picked, what you learned about them, their contributions to psychology, etc. For the benefit of your peers, and then we'll go on to the next person. Who would like to start us off? Sure. Yeah. You guys got.
Keegan. He's known for longitudinal studies from infancy to adolescence regarding children's behavior and traits. He made contributions to children's development. That's what he's known for. He was born in 1929 and died in 2021. Recently. He taught at Harvard for 36 years. All that information is from news.harvard.edu. Next is he was one of the major developmental psychologists of the 20th century, and that's from New England Complex Systems. He has a degree in BS, Bachelor of Science.
Yeah, that's what they are. Yeah. It's a BS or a BA. People have fun with the acronym, sure. And that was the three of you, right? Oh, two. Whoever would like to go next. Or we can just kind of go like this. Sure.
Cindy Hazan, Hazen.
Yeah, you can Hazen. Yeah.
She's at Cornell University for Human Development. One of her main things that she's known for is an attachment theory of Hazen and Shaver, which was established in 1987. And they found that adults who were secure in their romantic relationships were more likely to recall their childhood relationships with their parents as being affectionate, caring, and accepting. And that's from. People.
Be careful so you're getting good information.
Because she's written at least like 47 of them, and it's through research gate, and then the article says, I have, therefore I love, status quo, preference, and make choice. So this is drilling down to saying that when it comes to, like the matter of the heart, we need to love what we currently have. So if you had a choice between someone that was like, was it super, I don't know, was unattractive, but like, smart, that's what you're married to, versus the opposite, one would tend to lead towards fucking.
There was actually an interesting study done with guys and women where they passed out all these pictures of like traditionally good looking to not good looking guys for the first round, and women were like, oh, good looking guy. And then they took and they gave them careers, and they had the worst looking guy with the best career, and the shift in how the women picked the guys was completely opposite because of women value ambition more than looks. There's been a lot of studies on that. Men usually value looks first and then other things. Women usually value ambition. And that's just a difference. Not always the case, but there's been a lot of studies on this. So just mention that because what you said. So good. All right. You guys got him back?
So I think. The pregnancy and infants, the pregnancy of the mother, and like basic pressures or just being able to organize emotional response.
One of his very famous experiments was the visual cliff, where he would let the babies crawl a glass cliff, and if and mothers used to give a reaction. If the mothers if they looked happy, the babies would crawl, but if they looked scared, they would not. So
Very famous. Yeah. All right, cool.
Started working as a child psychiatrist in 1928, and he posed the idea of the importance of the early like childhood years in children's healthy emotional development. And he felt that this approach neglected the importance of their actual early experiences with their parents. And so he developed like the attachment theory, which describes the lasting emotional bond between an infant and a primary caregiver, vital for survival and development as an evolutionary mechanism to ensure protection during vulnerability. So he just focused on early like childhood years in personality growth and social relationships.
This work. Next row, front or back, whatever you guys want to do it. Sure. Yeah.
So I did Ellen Berscheid. So she was a professor of psychology at the University of Minnesota. Yeah, so her primary focus was interpersonal relationships. So mostly looking at like love and all aspects of it. She received multiple awards. So I read this article from her called Love in the Fourth Dimension, which highlights like 4 types of love. She studied and she talked about how love is polysemous. which is a word that means like, we have multiple meanings. So that was really interesting. She worked with, Elaine Parkfield, and one of her awards provoked a controversy, demonstrating that people do really want to learn about love. So, rather than, what talking about it.
Nice.
I have Catherine Kearns, and she's a professor at Kent State University. And she essentially researches like attachment and relationships. But to get more specific on that, it's between parents and children, as well as children and pets and parents. The pets are a newer thing of hers, but basically like how the parenting will affect the child's attachment to the parent, as well as how it affects their like mental stability, like anxiety symptoms and depression and whatnot, which can help then, parents to be a better parent to their child. And then also she studied like how it affects their relationships afterwards, like later in life, as well as their success in life. So she, also found like how supportive versus unsupportive parenting will affect, how children will internalize their problems, as well as, how it affects the attachment, like basically found that secure attachments tend to display better emotional regulation, better social skills. And then now she's currently studying, the relationships with pets and like how they can be used as like almost like a substitute for children with inadequate, parenting and whatnot. So they, have seen like that they can be a source of comfort when they're upset, or in general, just I didn't get to read enough about it, so I don't know exactly what came of her research yet. But basically it helps them become more resilient, but I haven't read more.
Yes. Daniel, what do you got?
So my person was Alexander Thomas slash Stella Chess. So Thomas was a psychiatrist, a neurologist, administrator, educator, and author. His major contribution was temperament-based intervention. So he believed that there was 9 temperament traits, and defined temperament as a child's emotional and behavioral response to the world. So he believed that, also for the project, he spent 30 years on the project, which involved a longitudinal study of over 100 people from birth to childhood and seeing just how they respond to the world. So his 9 traits were activity, regularity, initial reaction, adaptability, intensity, mood, distractibility, persistent attention span, sensory threshold, and that was it.
Nice work. Kimani. We got. Oh. Oh. Savannah.
He is a professor of psychology and brain sciences, as well as a director of clinical training at Indiana University. His main interests are in clinical science and developmental psychology, and his research has primarily been longitudinal studies focused on the development of behavioral problems in children, their competencies, child temperament, and bodies of their development process. His research has, some of his research has looked at what affects family interaction, child socioeconomic status, and other variables have on the child's competency. Another variable is like they've done studies on like how sleep affects their temperament and what their outcome is. And the research found that mother-child interaction characteristics are somewhat predictive of a child's later adjustments.
Nice.
Very, very untrue, and she's really known for her work in like early childhood psychology. And like most importantly, she studied like the attachment theory, which are the 4 different attachment styles. And she also developed an experiment called the frame situation, which um basically like talked about like the child's separation anxiety, stranger anxiety, and the behavior they exhibit like when they're reunited with a caregiver. And a lot of the work she did is still used today, like we're talking about a child's personality.
Yeah, whether they're attached, securely attached, distracted, etc. Yeah, sure, everybody. So understanding attachment, the earliest animal research suggests that attachment is based on biologically determined factors. Lorenz talked about imprinted goslings, the first thing that they see. Harlow, contact-seeking monkeys. So they want that soft touch. They had the terry cloth versus the wire cage. The wire cage had like food. The terry cloth had nothing. And they would go to the wire cage to get the food and they would stay with the terry cloth. So the idea is that because they're so close to us, that supports the idea of the importance of touch in development, like by the caregiver, mother, father, etc. So some Easter eggs here to look up. How do Japanese mothers handle their infants and children's emotional development differently from non-Latinx white mothers? Like a Google search would tell you. Maybe someone could tell us that. And then our other Easter egg Socratic question here is, we have an emotion coaching parent right here. What are some differences between emotion coaching, and emotion dismissing parents? Or take a minute or two to look that up, and then maybe someone can tell us the difference between those two.
I'm assuming emotion coaching is helping you through your emotions.
That one's pretty sure. Yeah, that one's. Did anyone look up this one? It will come right up if you look that up or type that in. Whoever finds it first can tell us what they found. So it's a cultural thing. It's interesting. And Yusuf, if you want some sidebar information about what it is to work as a psychologist, I'd be happy to sidebar the so you get information besides from your dad.
Yeah.
At any point during the term or after class, anytime, I bet we'd be like, well, here's what I do, here's what my career path looked like, just to give you like more context as you're thinking about, or if you're like, I'm ready,
No.
or anytime I'll be happy to like, yeah, more information besides just dad. Yeah.
Maybe next class, I'll have to run after this.
Yeah, sure. But I'm happy to, yeah.
You want to like you know, you say.
What? Yeah, if you know, yeah, there's like an Easter egg. Whoever found it first or knows for sure they have the right answer, tell us. Not just yeah, like make sure you're going off a legit website. The information's pretty readily available out there. But just make sure you're like, you found that, or maybe you check that against maybe one or two other websites. But it's pretty interesting how that happens without giving away the farm here. Find it?
It says, what is the typical, I didn't read too much into it, but so far it says like, what is the typical Japanese parenting style? And then it talks about identifying 2 parenting styles, proximal and distal. So like proximal is associated with consistent and prolonged body contact. So more like sleeping, bathing, and play focused. Physical contact between mother and child, very much anymore. So, and then basically, in like Western cultures,
or more like the kid sleeps in a room, it's more independent.
It's work.
But I don't know if that's right.
Yeah, that feels correct, yeah. So earliest human research suggests attachment based on needs for safety and security. Bowlby attachment provides home base through which the qualitatively unique relationship with the individual who best provides safety and serves as home base to be the infant. As children become more independent, they progressively roam further away from their secure base. So a little bit in line with Ainsworth, but from Bowlby's research. See some basic familiar expressions, remarkably similar across most diverse cultures. Non-verbal encoding fairly consistent among people of all ages. Although infants display similar kinds of emotions, the degree of emotional expressivity varies among infants. We're born with the capacity to display basic emotions, not the complicated ones. Those are more nurtured. We learn those. Basic emotions like sadness, joy, like the real basic ones. Anger is complicated. I think I mentioned this before. It's like, in a sense, like usually you're covering fear. Or angry about something like a job or a poor leader. You might be a little fearful of losing your job or not emotionally regulating, saying something you shouldn't. For example, joy, sadness, fear, and surprise. Generally pretty consistent, like in a sense, like we're born the sense to experience those. Those are all different. It's more than one culture, but those are like your four basic emotions. Example. Is there a max at birth? We have interest, distress, and disgust as well. Over the next months, clues of other emotions emerge. The kinds and degree of emotions expressed will, of course, vary. Izzard is our researcher. So, what do you think? Is this an early expression of jealousy? In the study by Hart and Carrington, researchers concluded that the reaction of the 6-month-old infants who observed their mothers giving attention to a baby doll may indicate the early appearance of jealousy because of the negative emotions such as anger and sadness that they displayed. However, experts on emotional development such as Campos and Kagan, we just talked about, argue that emotions such as jealousy don't appear during the first year. So, what do you guys think? Is that jealousy or is that anger and sadness with his expression with the
It could be sadness, because they're not getting the attention, or they might not even think about jealousy just yet necessarily. They're just focused on like, oh no, where's mom?
okay.
I mean, I feel like the anger and sadness is based coming from jealousy, but
Okay.
I'm sure Joseph Campos and Jerome Kagan have a more in-depth reason for why they think that.
Anybody else on that one?
To add to that, they could also, I feel like, be feeling anger because they're not getting attention, but again, like, maybe not in relation to like, it's because the attention is going elsewhere. It's just the fact that.
It's not happening to them versus that jealousy with it being more complex. I could see that. Yeah. So here's a strange person. Strange person anyways. Stranger anxiety, memory develops, ability to recognize familiar people emerges. The ability to anticipate and predict events increases. Appearance of an unknown person causes fear. Stranger anxiety is common around 6 to 7 months. The significant difference among infants and situations. There's a significant difference between what that looks like situationally and with the infants themselves. So smiling, earliest smiles have a little meaning. 6 to 9 weeks, they begin reliable smiling. Smile first relatively indiscriminate, then selective in terms of who they're going to smile, like what stimulus they're going to smile at or who they're going to smile at. 18 months, social smiling more frequent towards humans than non-human objects. End of the second year, using smiling purposefully, they show sensitivity to the emotional expressions of others. Also, like, you see like a kid like fall and then they look at you. And if you're like, listen, you're great. They're like, I'm great. And then if you're okay, then like they start crying.
Flip over and just looks at me like, you're fine, it's great. He looks like he's about to cry and he's like, okay.
Yeah. So what are some different types of cries? Well, we'll come back to that a little bit. If you're happy in the baby, as you guys remember from the reading, want to tell us. So we have first occurs around 8 to 9 months, social referencing, intentional search for information to explain the situation that aids in the understanding of others' behavior and context, and the intentional search for cues, which we just talked about. So in middle childhood, control of emotions grow. They gain a better understanding of the emotions and how they aid in the emotional highs and lows. Ability to hide emotions also increases. For example, if disappointed in a birthday gift, the child's ability to hide emotions grows. Empathy expands as children become more adept at genuinely experiencing the emotions of others. For example, a child begins to understand the sadness of the friend at the death of a friend's father. I was very good at this in high school. I had a friend give me a candle for a Christmas present. That was a friend. I actually got the fucking academy. I hated the gift and they had no idea. She got me this candle and I was like, yes. I was like, no. But it was way more excitement than that. I thought it was a pretty lame gift.
Like I realized that one of my uncles gave really bad gifts, and
Yeah.
so I like, my parents did that, always be disappointed, and so like we would prepare like, okay, my parents present, and so I was like, the one really good, and then I like after that, whatever, but at first my parents were like, you just like pretend like you like it, and then after that, it's like,
So we have beyond the storm and stress. Emotions tend to be among the most volatile during early adolescence. Emotions are more negative and more extreme than they were in middle childhood. Emotional response more transient and apt to be more quickly replaced. A teen can feel blue, but a phone call from the right person, friend, boyfriend, girlfriend changes the mood quickly. Anyone remembers teenage years? We were a little bit of emotional roller coaster. That's pretty normal. That's just part of developing. So these are children engaging in activity, a second step social emotional program like learning how to better manage those things. This is a young child expressing the emotion of shame, which occurs when a child evaluates his or her actions not living up to standards. A child experiencing shame wishes to hide or disappear. Why is shame called a self-conscious emotion? Any thoughts on that?
Because you kind of feel bad for what you did and then
Yeah.
makes you feel like a bad person sometimes.
Yeah. You're gonna add something, Yusuf?
It's a form of metacognition. You're
Yeah.
thinking
Oh,
your
thank you.
actions and what you've done.
Yeah, both correct. Yeah.
How what you did affected other people.
Yeah. You get out of that ego and being aware like the other, yeah. All correct. Nice. We have social emotional education programs or SEL. They target 5 core social and emotional learning domains. Self-awareness, recognizing one's emotions and how they affect behavior, for example. Self-management, self-control, coping with stress and impulse control, for example. Social awareness, perspective taking and empathy, for example. Relationship skills, developing positive relationships and communicating effectively with individuals from diverse backgrounds. And responsible decision making, engaging in ethical behavior, and understanding the consequences of one's actions, for example. So where in the brain, emotions produce activation of specific parts of the brain. The amygdala is central to the experience of emotions and linked between the perception of emotion producing stimulus and the memory of the stimulus, fear of a vicious dog. Neural pathways connecting the amygdala, visual cortex, hippocampus cause all instance fear, oftentimes bypassing rational thought. For example, seeing the dog later, recalling fear, not realizing the dog is on leash. And there is both a low road and a high road with the amygdala. Anyone ever hear of emotional hijack? Emotional Amygdala hijack, rather. That's where you like react disproportionately to the situation. Like there was a YouTube video, this politician gets like juice thrown on him and like he hauls off and texts the guy. That's amygdala hijack. It's a biological explanation, doesn't make it okay. There's also the subcortical road. Did we talk about that already? The high and low road with the amygdala. I know we did in gen psych. Did we talk about anything here? I think we did, right? Like I was swimming and I saw a dark mass in the water.
Oh, yeah.
And I was out of the water before I realized what it was. Yeah. Any thoughts on this one? This is just a Socratic question. What are some effective strategies to help children cope with traumatic events such as the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut? I do have some stuff, I think, on the next slide that talks through that if you're not sure.
Reassurance.
Yeah.
Reassurance. I don't know how you like deal with building things.
Yeah, reassurance, talking about it. The other part of the puzzle, emotional self-regulation. This increases during adolescence. Strategies for use for emotional regulation. Changing thoughts, realizing breakup means you are no longer tied down. Suppressing troubling emotions is when a teen tells themselves to chill or learn to put on a face appropriate to a social situation. So like working through it.
These are desirable or undesirable strategies? Because I know suppressing troubling emotions is generally not considered the right.
Yeah, and there's a theory now, possibly, but I want to see some more science on it, that the reason the men might live a shorter period of time than women on average is the suppression of emotions. It takes a strong person to be sensitive to their emotions or cry, but what is our social, cultural context? For a guy, be strong, push it down. For a woman, express your emotions. Like we need to change that social cultural rule because it's probably shortening the lifespan by like about 10 years for guys. Yeah, 74.7 for men and like 84.1 for women on average. So what do you got?
Is it because of stress, like all the cortisol?
Stress, cortisol. Some of it's cultural. I mean, like Monaco is a really high. They have the highest life expectancy in the world. Italy's like pretty close too. Some of the stuff we do in this country doesn't help us live any longer, like driving. We can skip
So men just like you down because of the cultural push.
Yeah.
And then like makes them stress like over their whole life and then like takes about 10
if you're a male, don't be seen as what? Yeah. Yeah. Depression and suicide. 2/3 of teens report being depressed. Causes: breakup of marriage, like their parents, torn romance, bullying, failure, death.
It's funny that you said that. That's what you saying, because now like I'm thinking about it. It does make sense. One time, like
What do you got, Denzel? Yeah, a story to.
I think I had like two. I guess high. I was like, hi, you know.
Yeah.
And like, girl, I was like, oh, whatever person I was with, was like, okay. Now, not that it's anything.
Oh, so expressing your emotion and then judging you in a social context,
Stuff like
in that context, as it being a negative thing. And from an identity standpoint, people should be who they are, regardless. Yeah. Just how I laugh. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that does make sense.
If I was talking about this earlier today with some other students at my day job, if a woman expresses emotions, we're like, all right, well, are you all right? Like if a guy does, we usually call him like a name. It's bad. It's really bad. Females experience depression more than males. African American teens report a high rate of depression. 1/4 of adolescents report feeling very sad or hopeless for 2 or more consecutive weeks. Only a small majority experience major depression, about 3%. Brie Larson and Marcy Richards found that adolescents reported more fleeing emotions than their parents did. For example, adolescents were 5 times more likely to report being very happy and 3 times more likely to report being very unhappy than their parents were. These are the extremes of emotion. As you can see, it's definitely up there with adolescence. 56 of No, we can end the time. We'll come back to this next week. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you in a week. If you have anything that's urgent, talk to me on the way out, call, text, or email. Other than that, have a great week. I will get the recording posted.
And then chapter 8, and then what's chapter 9 and chapter 10, or just chapter 9?
Chapter 9. Just chapter 9. And I moved like chapter 4 and above. I moved basically the ABA milestones all the way through chapter 8 after chapter 4, all the way over to next week, just because of what it's doing. But everybody, please look at Connect or the syllabus, not Blackboard, so we don't all keep getting confused on it. I'll reach out to the publisher again and see if there's something that I'm missing so that Blackboard will quit lying. I'm not sure if there's an easy solution. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.